Hello and welcome to another Genestealer Cult video. Before we get into today's video, I would like to say a big thank you to McKinley Johnston for sending in some awesome pictures of his Imperial Guard forces embattled against some rebel miners, or perhaps something a bit more sinister. Absolutely love these action shots. The lasers and the lightning and just the missiles and the explosions and the flag looks absolutely fantastic. Thank you for sending these pictures in, McKinley. If anyone else has got any cool pictures that they'd like me to use in my videos, then please post them on my Facebook page or email them to me directly, and there will be links and to Facebook pages and email addresses down in the description below. And one other thing to mention, if you'd like to support the channel directly, I do have a Patreon page. It's totally voluntary, but none of my videos are monetized, so I try and keep as few adverts as possible on the channel. I have no problem with anyone using ad block or anything like that, because I don't monetize my videos, and the only money I get is from the donations made by the Patreon, and all that Patreon money, it just goes straight back into the channel. I literally just let it build up, and then if I want a new army for the channel, or a new bit of equipment, like a new battle map, or some new terrain, or when lockdown ends, I used to use a lot of it for going to tournaments and tournament expenses like that, so I could keep my finger on the meta and then bring videos back and meta reports back for. So that's what I use the Patreon money for. All goes directly into the channel. So if you're interested in that, please go over. There's no minimum, no maximum. There's no like, oh, if you're a certain level you get certain benefits. It's literally just if you want to support, donate whatever you want, and it all goes into the channel. So I'm really transparent and open about it, and I always let people know what I've been using the money for and whatnot. So anyway, without further ado, let's get into today's video. Now, continuing with the theme of the Genestealer Cult videos, I want to take a look at maybe a little quick tip tactic, which is something that may have been overlooked by the wider Genestealer Cult community. And if you're a guard commander who's sort of kind of interested in trying to squeeze the most out of all available tactical resources, then this could be a video for you as well. Now, one thing that I've sort of been talking about with Genestealer Cult is they've kind of just been left in the dirt. Okay, now that's not necessarily to say that Genestealer Cult are a terrible faction. I mean, certainly some of the meta watch stuff that we see out there would say that they are. I think a big problem with the Genestealer Cult faction is that they're a relatively small community, and when a big change happens with like from 8th to 9th, and the whole sort of fundamentals of what's good and bad changes, because they're a small community, combined with the fact that there isn't a lot of second-hand models, combined with the fact that their new models are relatively expensive for what you get, so like £25 for 5 basic Acolyte troops, for example. I think the end result is that it takes a long time for the community to shift, and I think there are actually some big winning, at the very least, eyebrow-raising Genestealer Cult tactics and options, which are available to us right now, but we simply haven't seen the community shift yet. And I think a lot of people have gone, you know what, I can't be bothered sinking the money into shifting. I'll just use them as my fun sort of narrative faction, and when they're competitive again. And I think that's one of the things with Cult, is that they were briefly competitive for a long time, but now essentially what's left in the community is just the hardcore fans, people which just enjoy the faction for what it is. But because of this, I think a few things have been overlooked, and we've talked about several different tactics on this channel. I've consistently talked about how I believe that they're more of a shooting faction than a combat faction, contrary to popular opinion, especially now with 9th edition, blah blah blah. And I've been pushing a lot about neophytes and trucks, and I've consistently pushed that for a couple of years now, in 8th and 9th. My Cult army itself was actually doing quite well, because I almost pushed, my 8th edition Cult army is much better placed in 9th edition. But one of the things I think, again, I keep talking about this overlooked thing. One thing that's been overlooked, I think, is Acolyte hybrids. Again, this sort of briefly popped up as a meta thing for a tournament or two, but then kind of faded away again. But I definitely think it's something that needs to be made aware of to a lot of Genestealer Cult players, which is Acolyte hybrid flamer bombs. Okay, so what is a flamer bomb? What is the Acolyte hybrid flamer bomb? Well, back in 8th edition, hand flamers used to only have an 8-inch range, which meant that they couldn't cult ambush into flamer range. But there was a stratagem called lying in wait, which allowed you to deploy within 3 inches of the enemy. You couldn't move and you couldn't charge afterwards, but it did allow you to shoot in the shooting phase. And there was another stratagem that you could do called a perfect ambush, which meant that when you dropped in, you could shoot, or you could move d6 inches closer forward. So there's 2 ways of playing this. You could either take 1 block of 20 and, you know, spend, I think it's 5 CP in total, 2 to deploy within 3 inches, and another 3 to shoot when you drop in. And you drop in your movement phase, shoot someone with 20 hand flames, because every single Acolyte can take a hand flame. Now, they're only strength 3, but when you're shooting 20 of them, and the average dice roll is a 3.5, that means on average, from a 20 block of Acolytes, you are getting 70 automatic hits. Now again, they're only strength 3, but 70 strength 3 hits is still good. And it was good at horde clearance. And it was just good at just piling wins and anything. It was good at anti-aircraft. It was just good at everything. And so but the problem with it was that you could only do it like once a turn, and it cost you 5 CP every single time to do it. So it wasn't ideal. Now you could kind of, you know, you could technically do it on 2 units. So what you could do is you could get 1 unit within 3 inches, and then that would like roadblock the enemy, and then you could use the other ambush to move d6 inches towards the enemy, and that means you'd have 40 guys who are in range, and you could even charge one of those 20 mobs afterwards, because the one that lets you move d6s closer or shoot doesn't restrict you from charging. So there was a bit of tactical flexibility, but the point is it was very CP intensive, a minimum of 5 CP a turn, and you could only do it on a unit or 2 a turn, which meant that if the enemy screened you out, you were scuppered, you were done for, you were buggered, because it meant that they could, you know, they could just invalidate one of your tactics. Now, with the changes in 9th edition, this is no longer a problem. You see, hand flamers, their range went up to 12 inches. All flamers went up to 12 inches. Whether you're a heavy flamer, a regular flamer, or a hand flamer, you always at 12 inches. They did get a point increase, so Acolytes are 8 points now, and the hand flamers, I believe, are 3 points. I'm going to double check because I do not want to be incorrect, and I have the thing here in front of me. Hand flame is 3 points, so it's 11 points per model to do it. It used to be 10 points or 9 points, but now it's 11 points per model. So it's, you know, expensive-ish, but the advantage is you are spending points, but you're not spending CP now. You see, this is one of the big fundamental shifts that's happened with Genestealer Cult. They are not as CP intensive as they used to be, and the shift that a lot of players haven't made is they're still thinking of the Genestealer Cult as this faction that comes in, burns all the CP in 2 turns, and then just and either you destroy the enemy or you fall flat on the face. No. There's a lot of things, like hand flames going up to 12 inch range, which has removed the need to rely upon CP to pull your tactics off. Now, you can take your 20-man Acolyte Flamer Bomb and just cult ambush it into Flamer range straight away. No questions asked. Now, there's 2 reasons why this is really good. Firstly, it allows you to spend CP on other stuff. Okay, so the CP cost of the whole bomb has been taken out of the equation. You might be spending more points, but you're not spending CP. Secondly, it makes it a lot harder for the enemy to screen you out, because you can do this on as many units as you like. Literally, if you took you could take a block of 20 Acolyte hybrids with flamers, and you could take that, and that's going to cost you about 200 points. Okay, but that's all it's going to cost you. Now you could do that. I mean, a lot of times. Literally, you could do it 3, 4. Before, you used to be able to do it reliably on two blocks of Acolytes a turn, and it would cost you 5 CP. Now, you could do it on 4 units, and it would cost you less than 1,000 points. So you can literally do as many flamer bombs as you like. Okay, and you used to have to choose a Genestealer Cult player between doing like Biker Bomb or Flamer Bomb. Now you could do both. Now you can spend your CP on getting your bikes in where you want them in, and your Acolyte hybrids, they don't need any CP spending on them. So it's a really, I think, really effective change which has gone under the radar. Now, there's a couple of things you can do to make these guys even crazier. I mean, first off, you could take a Primus. And you might be like, well, why would I take a Primus? It's mad. Primus, when he comes in, gives you a unit, but you can get real ones to wound against. Nothing wrong with that. You know, if you've got 2 hand flamer, but sure thing I say with the extended range, you don't have to deploy 12 inches away. You can deploy 9 inches away still from Cult Ambush, but you can have multiple layers of Acolytes now. So you're pretty much always in range of what you want to flame. So you can have 2 units of Acolytes, 3 units, 4 units of Acolytes coming in one turn, and they're all going to be in range of something to flame. The enemy's not going to be able to charge them all in one turn. That means you can then countercharge it in your turn, and you can have your Primus nearby who can give them real ones to wound against the the units that they hand flame, and then he gives them +1 to hit when they charge in inevitably in the counter attack next turn. So there's loads of things that that work in this situation. There's a few other buffs that you can stack on top of it as well. So another couple of ways you can buff this whole thing is you can take Bladed Cog. Now Bladed Cog is already, I would argue, the best cult creed out there at the moment. I've done a video breaking down all the cult creeds and which ones I think are best. They simply have a Warlord trait. After deployment, before the first battle round begins, select 1 unit from your opponent's army. You can reroll wound rolls for attacks made by friendly Bladed Cog units whilst they were within 6 inches of your Warlord when targeting a selected unit. Now, don't forget, you might say, well, why would you want your Warlords so up close? Well, firstly, Warlords don't really matter all that much anymore. I mean, they don't give away points unless someone takes a weird secondary about it. But secondly, don't forget that Genestealer Cult have access to a stratagem called Brood Coven, which means if you've got a Patriarch, a Primus, and a Magus all in the same detachment, you can spend 1 CP. It might even be just in the army. But anyway, if you've got those 2 models, then spend 1 CP, and each one of them gets a Warlord trait. So one of your Warlord traits could be the Bladed Cog, Single-Minded Obsession. So that's one buff to take into account. Another one that you can look at is the Pauper Princes. Now the Pauper Princes already get lots of attacks, rerolls in close combat, and in fact, what I would argue is that before we even go into this buff, if now that you're able to do this with many more units, you can deep strike more and more Acolytes in. That's more chances to get your charge roll off. Now don't forget you can add Clamavus's in as well, so which would give you +1. So if you've got 4 units of these Acolyte hybrids dropping in, maybe you've taken lots of 10-man squads, maybe you've taken 4 20-man squads. But let's say you're doing this with between 60 and 80 Acolyte hybrids, then that's lots of chances to get off the charge roll. That's a lot of chances to do that. If you've got 4 or 5 units and they've all got +1 to charge, that's pretty good, and you can flame as well. So it's just an idea. I mean, the main focus of this is that you're going to drop in and flame people, but it's always nice to be able to follow up with a cheeky Acolyte charge, because even relatively unsupported Acolytes have got enough attacks to dice and slice in combat. I mean, those Pauper Princes ones, they've got 2 basic attacks each with the Rending Claws, another one with the Cultist Knife, and they get full rerolls when they charge. So you can't really complain about that. But speaking of Pauper Princes and shooting, they have a psychic power called the Last Gasp. Okay, Last Gasp has a warp charge value of 7. If manifested, select 1 Pauper Princes unit from your army within 12 inches of the psychic. Until the start of your next psychic phase, when a model in that unit is destroyed, roll 1d6 before removing that model. On a 4+, that model can either shoot with one of its ranged weapons, i.e. a hand flamer, as if it were your shooting phase, or make 1 attack with one of its melee weapons if it was its fight phase. So you can deploy this screen of Acolytes and flame the crap out of people, and then when they start shooting you back, well, you're more than likely going to be in their face. So every single one that they kill on a 4+, you're going to give them another d6 flamer shots. Now, I also believe that there is a relic for the Pauper Princes as well, which does the same thing. So if you want to, rather than use a psychic power, which might or might not go off, instead want to use your free relic or a relic on this thing, you can take the reliquary of Saint Tendark. Pauper Prince's model only. Friendly Pauper Prince's units automatically pass morale test while they're within 6 inches of the bearer, which is already good. Saves you on a patriarch. In addition, roll a d6 each time a friendly Pauper Prince's infantry or biker model is destroyed, whilst it is within 6 inches of the bearer. Before removing that model from the battlefield, and a 4+, that model can either shoot with one of its ranged weapons if it were a shooting phase, or make a single attack with a melee weapon. So there's 2 ways of doing it. So you can deploy this screen, you can burn the crap out of the enemy, and then when they start fighting back, which they're going to have, you'd be blocking them in the middle of the board, so they're going to have to come forward if they want to start winning on primary or contesting on primary. So they're going to be in range. The more they start shooting you, the more you start burning them again. It's a very nasty combination. So it allows you to roadblock, it allows you to burn, and it allows you to really play mind games with the opponent. So the more they hurt you, the more you start hurting them back. So it really is quite an effective tactic now that they've got 12-inch range on those hand flamers. So that's really, really cool. So that's all of the buffs that I can think of at the moment. But I'm sure there will be some other ones. One thing I do want to mention, total honourable mentions, only just popped into my head now. That Pauper Prince's last gasp. Okay, it's any unit. It's, if manifested, select one Pauper Prince's unit from your army within 12 inches of the Psyker. Now, you could use that on something like hand flamers, but the difference between, just so you're aware, the difference between the psychic power and the relic is the relic only works on infantry or bikers, but the last gasp psychic power for Pauper Princes works on any unit. Now, I don't know what implications that has potentially for hand flamers. Maybe it just allows you to spread out a little bit more, but it definitely makes you think, oh, what about some of the other units that Pauper Prince have access to? And you could say the Achilles Ridge Runners. Like I said, totally tangent this one, guys, but it's only for 30 seconds. You could put last gasp on your Achilles Ridge Runners. You can take them in a squadron of 3. They can stay in that squadron of 3. And every time one of those Achilles Ridge Runners dies on a 4+, you would get to shoot off with the mining laser again. The heavy mining laser. That's not a bad thing to just be aware of if you are a Pauper Prince's player. Anyway, don't want to go off on too many tangents. What do you guys think? What do you guys think? Does this does the Flamer Bomb, is it back and better than ever? Is it just slightly too expensive? If I was to do this, I'd probably do it with, I'd probably have like about 800 points or something sunk into this, because you can literally burn anything. I guess it's a choice of, if we're, in the last video we talked about doing the, well, not last video, the one before the last video, second to last video, with the Genestealer Cult Twisted Helix Bum Rush, where you just take like 120 neophytes and just charge at people. I guess the question is, would you take your Bum Rush and just charge, or an alternative, if you don't like Twisted Helix and you prefer Pauper Princes, is, okay, well, I'll take Hand Flame Acolytes instead. Either way, what we're seeing here is there's a good mileage out of Acolytes, as well as, as neophytes, as I've been saying for a long time. Now, one last thing to mention. We are talking about using Acolytes in great volume. Acolytes are not cheap. There was a time when you could pick them up cheap new on Sprue because of the various box sets that were out there. The Genestealer Cult one side was getting sold off fairly cheap. You may find a lot of Genestealer Cult models secondhand on eBay because they are considered a bottom tier faction at the moment. But in my experience, eBay does not have a huge amount of Genestealer Cult stuff. So let's assume that there's a few pickings on eBay, but the majority of it you're going to have to source from somewhere new in box. Now, of course, the first thing to say is, £25 for 5 Acolyte. It might have even gone up with all the GW price increase. It's hard to keep track. But let's say £25 for 5 Acolytes is expensive. It means to do one of these Flamer Bombs, if you do it legit from the box, you're looking at £100, which is too expensive, quite frankly. So what I propose is get a few Acolyte boxes, I guess, or whatever. Do what you want. But seriously consider using some of the Necromunda models. Okay. Now, the Necromunda models that I've seen, which have been absolutely fantastic for conversion to Acolytes, are the Delac Gangers. And it's really simple. You literally take... You don't even need to do any head swaps if you don't want to. But if you're going to... You can either buy all Delac Gangers and you get 10 models for about £25. So you're already halving the cost. But you don't have like hand flamers and stuff in that kit. Now, it depends how... You know, how WYSIWYG you want to be. But if you want to, if you want to make them look a bit more Genestealer cultish, I mean, they already do look pretty cultish, but if you want to make them look even more so, buy sort of a 50-50 ratio. Save yourself half, save yourself about 25%. And buy sort of a 50-50 ratio of Acolytes to Delac Gangers. Because the Acolyte box, the reason it's so expensive is it comes with so many extra bits, so many extra heads. And you can do a head swap between the Acolytes and the Delac Gangers. It looks fantastic. You can use all the hand flamers and stuff in the kit as well. So that's one way of doing it. Of course, don't forget, there's third parties out there. You've got things like Element Games, who are Twisted Helix, and Goblin Gaming, who will give you between 15 and 25% off. So if you went full Delac Gangers, you're already saving 50% because you're getting 10 models that are 5 models for £25. If you then go to somewhere like Goblin Games or Triple Helix or Twisted Helix and get another 25% off, you're actually getting sort of 5 models for £25. You're getting 10 models for about £20, which is really good. Really, really good. The savings then are significant. You know, you can do one of these bombs for basically the same price as a box of Intercessors, you know, £35–40. So there you go. And there's always lots of bits and swaps and all this kind of stuff. But that's we'll leave the video there. It's meant to be a quick one, this one, but there's always more to talk about with Genestealer Cult. They're a very in-depth faction. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think. What other ways can we buff the Genestealer Cult flamer bombs, and also what other Genestealer Cult tactics are there out there? And last but not least, what are some good money-saving tips for getting your Genestealer Cult army on the tabletop without having to take out a second mortgage? Hope you guys enjoyed this video, and of course, I'll see you guys next time.